Good evening and welcome to the Buddy Martin Show and podcast on a Thursday night.
Yes, it's time again for Buddy Martin. Call him up and tell him what you're thinking. But be kind because he's doing the best he can.
Better, stronger, faster.
Mama says that alligators are ornery because they got all them teeth but no toothbrush.
What if the voice calls while you're gone?
Take a message.
Bye!
You ready, champ?
I'm ready for this my whole life.
I'm incapable of small talk. But that's why you love me, right?
Kind of intimidating to be in the presence of so many great athletes.
Hello, welcome back to the Buddy Martin Show on a night when we're looking down our noses at Cupcake Saturday for the SEC. But sometimes cupcakes taste good. I call it Martha Stewart University, and a time when some banged up teams will be able to play some players that they wouldn't otherwise see, when some people like Alabama will be able to rest their injured quarterback, Tua. A time when the Florida Gators against Idaho should be able to get a look at what their other options are at quarterback. Unless Felipe Franks goes all the way, which I'd be very surprised if he did. Although it may be Andrew, it may be Kadarius Toney. Kadarius Toney may be playing the Wildcats. So, a lot of questions about who plays, what quarterbacks play, the rotation, and much discussion continues on the subject of attendance. Attendance. What is going on in the world of college football fans? We talked about it a lot this week. We talked about it again tonight with Robbie Andreu. We'll talk with Kassidy Hill, very bright young reporter for InsideTheGators.com. She's not that far removed when she was sitting in the stands herself, but she's been following the game a long time, and she has boots on the ground engagement. So, what is the reason that students are not showing up? What is the reason other people aren't showing up? I know I've heard all the reasons why, and I buy into the fact that it's a better experience for many people who don't want to pay the money, take the trip, go through the aggravation, the traffic, pay the high prices, and would rather sit back in their homes with their colon in their hand and the channel selector so they can jump around during commercials and watch on a 60-inch screen. I get that. Sometimes I do that myself. But there is a price to pay for that. Long term, that kind of thing can hurt your team and hurt your program. I'm going to tell you why tonight. And I ask you a question. I know some people will say I'm being unpatriotic when I say this, but it's like patriotism. You love your country, you sacrifice for it. You love your team, you sacrifice for it, right? It isn't just going to the game, it's being a part of the game. And the question becomes, are fans now not feeling like they're connected to be part of the game? And if they don't, what's it going to take to change that? Or can it be changed? There are many things going on in our society right now, with millennials and otherwise. There's a lot of people who are baby boomers who don't want to go to games anymore. And while it's not drastic, there's a little bit of fall off every year in attendance, and the universities have to blame themselves for that somewhat. That's why there's a movement underway right now in college football to make stadiums smaller. Too many 90, 100,000 seat stadiums, plenty of tickets, and yet they squeeze them in these little 2-foot size wide seats. I mean, I don't know how you do it, unless you can afford a luxury box. I like to sit in a press box. Even that's not the best in the world, but I got to admit, being free, it's a lot better than paying the price of the ticket. So, look, here's the deal. Unless you get paid to do this, it's your job. and you have the money to be able to afford to go and get a good parking place, not walk 10 blocks to get there in the hot sun. I get it. I get there are better options for you. You'll hear something tonight that I found very interesting when I talked to Robbie Andreu in a pre-recorded segment. What he said, that a number of people in the media have noticed an unusually large number of students walking the other way from the media guys when they walk to the stadium. There's a flood of students going to parties the other way. I don't know. Are they just going there and never showing up? I heard a report today that it would be easy to get tickets if they could give them out more than one day a week. I think they cost $20 a piece. I don't know. Let's just say in general, the support of the team at the gate has not been what it used to be. The question is, can it be reversed? That's one of the topics we'll talk about tonight. We're going to go right to the telephones here in just a second. Let me go get this little message from Daniel Hightower, and I'm going to call Kassidy Hill and get her take on all those things.
Job-related accidents create incredible stress on your finances, your relationships, and most importantly, your sense of well-being. When the adjuster is not approving benefits you're entitled to by law, you need Dan Hightower to help you understand all of your legal options. Daniel L. Hightower has been fighting for accident victim justice in Ocala and statewide since 1976. Call Daniel L. Hightower today to better understand all your legal options. 352-629-7777.
Daniel L. Hightower, lawyer fighting for accident victim justice since 1976. We're going to see if we can go. We won't need this particular screen, so we'll go back to our other one, and we'll talk to Kassidy Hill of InsideTheGators.com, who covers the team regularly. She's on the beat. She's very bright, intelligent. She has her thoughts about a few things. We'll see what she has to say about that while we put some of your comments up there, like Sarah Ritteroff's comments. So let's go to the hotline now and talk to that beat reporter out there grinding every day so you get information and good stuff. Kassidy Hill from InsideGators.com joins the program. Good evening, Kassidy.
Hey, buddy. How's it going?
It's going well here, and we're having a lot of conversations this week about the fact that the crowds seem somewhat apathetic toward this football team, except when it involves quarterbacks. People not showing up, students not showing up. I don't know the whole story. I know in general that the passion for college football has cooled off some over what it used to be, and I know that there are issues beyond what we understand. But just to jump in the middle of this conversation, since the show tonight is going to be about attendance primarily and the attitude toward attendance, and Coach Mullen's already on record about how he feels about it. What's going on up there as far as you can tell with the fans?
I think more than anything, it's the students. Mullen has kind of mentioned that, as well as, people got mad at Chauncey Gardner for his comment on Twitter, but in that original tweet where he called out the fans, he said, the alumni and the boosters, they're always there. They're always behind us. It's the students. And, he clarified his comments a little bit after the South Carolina game. And I thought he said exactly what he needed to say, and that he was completely right. And that he was saying, if you're going to call yourself a fan, if you want to be a fan and you want to, go tell everyone else that you're a fan and you support us, then just do that. If you want to tell everyone you support us, then actually support us and show up. And that is the biggest problem. I think it is over there with the students, because it hasn't, what's the best way to put it? It's not the most important part of the day anymore.
Of course.
It's the tailgating beforehand. It's the partying afterwards. Mm-hmm. And I sound like such an old fuddy-duddy when I say that. But the game itself, they've sort of taken it for granted. And I think we're going to see some changes happen between now and next season that basically says, okay, if you're going to take it for granted, that's fine. We won't let you we'll give your seat to somebody else who wants it more. Mm-hmm. Scott Strickland has been very open about listening to suggestions. He has asked for suggestions. He's not ignored it, which is something that I think may have been done in the past. Like, oh, they just don't want to show up. That's their fault. Okay, well, how do we fix it? And Scott Strickland has really got out in front of the problem as much as he can. I commend him for doing a good job, because he and Mullen both know that can make a huge difference. It made a difference on Saturday against South Carolina. And, I know people, especially after the Missouri loss, got their feathers a little ruffled with Mullen calling out the crowd and mostly the students. Mullen has not changed his message on the crowd at all. From the moment he got off the plane until he started doing his summer speaking tour. I got to go listen to him at a couple of stops on his summer speaking tour, and he always made that comment. We sell out the stadium, then we win the championship. It's not the other way around. And when he would say it on his summer speaking tour, it would get a lot of applause, and you're right, Coach, we'll be there this fall. Then, after the Missouri loss, when nobody shows up, he says it, and everyone's like, can you believe he'd call us out like that? They just need to win first. It goes hand in hand. And I understand that being a fan and going to the games it's not required. It's something you want to do. But if you want to see them win and you want to get a better recruiting class to get more talent in here, part of that is being there. And I know not everyone can be, and that's really where I'm circling back around to. The people who have an opportunity to be there, like the students, they have an opportunity to get tickets to a game that people from all over the country would want to come see, and they're getting them at a good price. And
$20, right? $20.
I'm not even sure. I have no idea, to be honest with you, buddy.
Yeah.
But they're almost taking advantage of it. I mean, this last game, there were several thousand student tickets not even picked up, which means they were ordered for the season and then not picked up for the South Carolina game. Now, when I was in school, this was at Alabama, not at Florida, and I know every school does a little different. But at Alabama, if you bought season tickets and if you missed 3 home games, you didn't get to buy season tickets the next season.
Really?
And that was part of it. Like, you're not going to buy them and then not go.
Wow.
You just did. And if you didn't go, you didn't get to order them the next season.
Yeah, well, that's kind of understandable because you're depriving somebody else. You have tickets. Yeah, I understand that.
Exactly.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I just was going to wrap up saying, we've actually seen Scott Strickland being very proactive about it. You see him on Twitter all the time. Somebody will send a suggestion to him, and he'll respond and say, what would be the best way to do this? And he's not mouthing off like, oh, well, how do you expect me to do this? He's genuinely asking, what would make it easier for you as a fan to make this happen? And I think we're going to see some changes before next season, especially with the student tickets, because that is the biggest problem. Because they get in late, and I heard a student the other day say, well, it's not our fault. They want 30,000 students to go through 7 gates. Okay, get in line an hour earlier.
Spoken like a true Alabama fan would figure a way how to get it. No, I hear what you say, and I read something today. I don't have no idea if this is how to check this out, but one person tweeted that they only give the tickets out 1 day a week. You can only get them out 1 day, and that's it. So
that's not unusual for schools, though.
Okay. And then the other things are, obviously, we know about the Wi-Fi and the phone and the phones and how people are connected now, and the millennials need their phones, and they're spending $6 million, almost $7 million to get that fixed. That's one. But there's also the element. Let's just be real honest about it. Football is not as popular with that age group as it used to be.
That's true. And I think that's why you're seeing them try to implement more game day activities just to make it more fun, because it still can be. But and millennials, and I say this as millennial, although I will just clarify this: the students, if they're in college right now, they're not millennials. That's Generation X or Z or whatever.
That's true. That is true.
That's no longer millennials. But still, that age group, they want to be involved in something. So I think something as simple as get a free drink if you show up with a canned food around Thanksgiving. It sounds almost too simplistic, but they know they can be involved in something and they can be a part of something, and it's more than just the game.
Right.
I think that'll get them there a lot more too.
Yeah, that was, like I say, it's almost like, I don't want to say religion, but it's like patriotism in that regard. It's an obligation thing. Support your team. You just wouldn't think of it. Not if you lived in Alabama. And here's the other thing. It's a different kind of, the demographics are different. The kids are not all from the state of Florida. And, and Florida itself is a more diverse state. They didn't grow up as Gator fans or Seminole fans. They grew up as Browns fans or UCLA fans or whatever it may be. And you have more.
Never watched football.
Yeah, or you have a lot of soccer people who like, you have international students who were not well, they might have been American, but they grew up with the different games. So it's the whole persona of the student is changing in terms of where they come from on football. Anyway, okay, I just thought I would get your take on that. It was very interesting. I want to talk to you about football and about quarterbacks and about what's going on. And give me first your take on Saturday. I thought that team was dead in the water after they went behind 31-14. I was just surprised to see them come back. Were you?
To be honest with you, I thought they were dead in the water when they went down 14-0.
Right, first time, yeah.
They went down 31-17. I felt pretty confident they could come back.
Really? Why?
Well, when South Carolina went up and made it 31-17, that was the differential, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Yes, it was.
31-14 and 31-17.
Right. When they went up 14-0, it was just two quick strikes. They were tearing up the defense. They were taking advantage of them right where it hurt. This defense, bless their heart, buddy, they're so up and down, and their Achilles heel are tight ends.
Isn't that the
South
truth?
Carolina immediately took advantage of that.
And why did South Carolina come back to that play? That's what I don't get. they picked on the safeties for those big guys, and, man, they were just eating them alive.
Yeah. It was two separate tight ends. It wasn't like it was the same guy.
Right. And Missouri did the same thing. Missouri's tight ends ate them alive.
Yep. So did Georgia.
Yeah.
Georgia, Missouri, South Carolina, they all did it. So when they went up 14-0, I thought, oh, my goodness, this is going to be a long day. Mm. And then Florida tied it. Mm-hmm. And then when, they went in 21-14 at half, and then they came back out, and they went up 24-14, and I really wasn't worried. When they went up 31-17, I write my game stories in separate little pieces, and there's one section that says it was over when they went up 31-17, I did go ahead and write that part to say that South Carolina, it was over when South Carolina went 31-17.
Okay.
But it was with an annotation, like this might change. Mm-hmm. And I think I felt like there was still time for Florida to make it a game just because of what they had done against Vanderbilt. They kept it close against Georgia. And really having seen them already come back from a 14-point deficit earlier that day. And so I think, even though it was like, okay, that's a big differential, but it's somehow not as daunting as that 14-0 deficit was. Mm. If they can come back from that, then this shouldn't be a problem either. And as soon as they scored again, I think it was on the Michael Pirine run, I was like, oh, they've got this. Because that was one of the most dominant rushing performances I've seen from Florida in a long time.
Certainly was.
I was not at the game in 2016 at LSU. Mm-hmm. I was not there in person for that, but I was in person. I was there in person for that Matt Jones Kelvin Taylor game against Georgia a few years ago. Mm-hmm. And this to me matched right up there with it, and it was almost maybe even a little bit more impressive because it was spread out over multiple guys. Mm-hmm. It was not just Jordan Scarlett and LaMichael Pirine who played. They showed everything they do well on Friday. Right. But it was also Felipe, and it was Kadarius Toney. And, they were all getting in there and getting those touches, and they really spread it out, and they all were picking up those yards. And it was like I said, it was probably the most dominant rushing performance I've seen from Florida in a long time. And they were just doing anything they wanted to on the ground. And that made the difference because that first drive, South Carolina came out and scored, and then Florida went down the field and had to punt. On that first drive where they punted, they ran 7 plays, and 5 of them were passes, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly. Their next drive, they came out, they ran 13 plays, and 10 of them were rushing, and that's when they scored to make it 14-7.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, they just turned to the run game the rest of the day, and they were able to pretty much do anything they wanted, and especially from Felipe. What we saw from Felipe on Saturday is what Dan Mullen wants out of his quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, we saw him sort of fit that style and therefore fit into this offense. It was one of Felipe's best games, maybe his best overall game, because, he's had those moments with the Hail Mary against Tennessee last year. And he played well enough versus LSU. This was the first game where I really thought he played good from beginning to end.
Really?
And it worked.
Interesting. All right, so what is your take on the rotation of the quarterbacks? Franks is going to obviously play most of the way. I got a feeling we'll see Kadarius Toney taking the Wildcats now. It's a bunch of them. I think, I don't know. I don't believe Emory Jones will see the light of day in this game because they want to save him for the two of the final three, I think. But what is your feeling about who will play and who will start and how long they'll play?
I tend to agree, maybe with one little difference. Felipe for sure will start. And I think that they want to use Emory in the bowl game just because of all that practice time.
Right.
Not so much the game, but just the practice time. He could still practice, obviously.
Right.
But you practice differently when you know you're going to play.
Well, he can play himself right into the lineup. If he plays well, he can just continue his own next year where he left off,
So, but it's not as much of a worry as we have to have him as backup for the bowl game because Kyle Trask should be back by then. So it's not a worry so much about having him there as a backup and saving his last game for the. I said that weird. It's not as much of a worry as like, oh, we need to save that fourth game for Emory to be the bowl game, so we have him for the backup.
Right.
Because they will have Trask back by then. Or
if he's okay. I mean, I'm assuming he's going to be okay. It's a broken foot, not a fractured foot. Is that right? Broken bone.
I was told by his dad it was a Jones fracture.
Okay. A what kind?
That's how he worded it.
What kind of fracture? Bone fracture?
A Jones, Jones.
What the heck is that?
It is a fracture between the heel of the foot and the fifth metatarsal, is how Google describes it. And
wait, this is too weird. They got Emory Jones playing quarterback, Jalen Jones coming in next year, and their backup quarterback has a Jones fracture.
I know.
That's a whole lot of Jones right there,
Yeah. But all of that to say, they plan on having him back for the bowl game. But at the same time, you want to get that practice time to Emory, and he is going to practice differently. He knows he's going to play. Mullen even said the other day, as soon as Kyle got hurt, he said it was almost funny to watch Emory because he kind of just went from standing there to like picking up the play script and being like, oh, okay, what do I need to do next? Like, what could, he immediately jumped to attention because he realized he was all of a sudden the backup. And so I think it'll be interesting to see, but at the same time, this Idaho game, that's such a great opportunity to get him in there and just let him play so much. Because they should be able to have it wrapped, knock on wood, they should be able to have it wrapped up by halftime. And that's almost 2 whole quarters that you could get Emory in there.
Yeah.
And, how can you pass up that playing time?
Yeah.
And you're not necessarily guaranteed that you're not guaranteed it against Idaho, but you're not guaranteed it as much against Florida State. You should be able to beat Florida State the same as you would an FCS team this season. But it's a rivalry game. It's in Tallahassee. People are going to show up for it. The team is going to show up for it. So, that one will be a little bit tougher. So, all that to say, I don't think they'll pull his red shirt even with Trask being hurt. I think we see Toney. I think we see Kadarius Toney take more snaps at Wildcat before or even
I
that
agree.
true quarterback
Yeah.
before we see them pull Emory Jones redshirt. Dan Mullen has been adamant about that.
Yeah.
I don't know why. People ask, why would you not do it? Da, 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 da. I don't know. But he has a plan, and that plan includes redshirting Emory Jones this year.
Interesting. Okay, I don't know much about recruiting, but I know the list I saw today. And I have people coming. I have Jason Hagan next week, who's really good at it. But but I mean, everybody's worried about recruiting. I mean, I'm always I'm always worried about what they have now. You know, it doesn't do good if they have 8 5-stars for next year if they're losing 6 games this year. You know, it's like dance for the ones that brung you, that old cliche, you know. So sometimes we obsess on recruiting. But I just happened to see this list. I don't know this college football something or another, and I looked at the list, and Florida was 24th in ranking in recruiting. I don't know. Have you heard anything about the recruiting situation?
It's about the same. That's about where they've been all season.
Okay.
I don't follow it as much as I used to. Back when I was with Gator Country, I did a lot of recruiting with Robbie. But here we have 2 really good recruiting guys for our site, Joseph Hastings and Jackson Ramirez, and they really handled the recruiting, so I don't follow it as much. But that mid-20 range is about where they've been all season, and that's a jump up from where they were before the season. And there's a possibility they could end top 15, maybe top 10. It would require getting a few guys that they still have their eye on and they're still in the running for. You know, guys like Trey Sanders, who was at the South Carolina game.
Right.
Yes, he was at the South Carolina game. And, you know, his brother's on the team, so that helps. But it would require getting him, a running back, require getting Chris
Steele.
Steele, thank you. Which is a decent possibility. I don't know if you saw it on Twitter, but the other night, this Michigan commit, who's a pretty highly rated wide receiver, and he tweeted at Chris Steele and said, "Man, when you going to commit to us?" And Chris Steele said, basically, "I don't even remember the last time I heard from anybody on your staff."
Not a good sign.
And so, yeah.
Okay, here it is. Now,
there's a that are out there.
Okay, well, we'll talk recruiting again sometime. I got to get caught up on a few things here. I'm not prepared to ask intelligent questions about it, but I keep forgetting that the signing day
I'm
now.
not prepared to give intelligent answers.
Well, but here's the thing: we had plenty of time. We don't now. We have early signing day coming up, so it isn't like we can wait until February, you know. But anyway, here's the question. Now, going back to the final wrap up of this, Florida's attendance and Florida's. You know, Florida is Florida, and it's obviously been one of the premier schools. They've had won 3 national championships since 1996, obviously. We know all that. The question that comes is, where are the Gators when it comes to stacking up against the rest of the crowd? Where do they rank? And I didn't know. And I looked it up. This is not exactly the accurate figures because it's really through 2017, and we don't have 2018. And it's a 5-year average, too. But if I said to you, could you name, you should be able to name 3 or 4 of the, at least, probably 4 or 5 of the top 10, you think?
In attendance?
Yeah, a 5-year average.
Yeah, I think I could do it.
Yeah, I think you could. I mean, I'm going to give you Michigan, Ohio State, and Alabama, okay? So that's easy enough. All right.
put Texas A&M up there.
You're their 5th. Mm-hmm. Another SEC.
State?
Penn State is right above them. 2 SEC teams.
Tennessee.
There's one of them.
LSU.
That's the other one. And there's one more SEC team in the top 10.
I might think Auburn.
Actually, Georgia. Georgia's 9th, and they're in between. In between Texas and Nebraska. No Florida. Okay? Top 10. However, the Gators are 11th. They are 11th. I would have thought they'd have been in the top 10.
I thought Brad said
Auburn's 12th, just so you know. Well, ahead of Oklahoma, which is surprising, and Notre Dame and Clemson. So anyway, I mean, there's a lot that goes into that. I mean, the size of the stadium, the prices of the tickets, the kind of football you play all factor in. I don't know if we can read too much into that. But the days of these 100,000 stadium seats, with the exception maybe of Alabama, automatically selling out, they're over.
I don't know about because Alabama has had trouble as well.
Yeah, they have. Well, they had students are down there. Yeah, they have.
Yeah, but so much so that they unveiled that new plan a few months ago. You know, it's going to take a few years, but they're downsizing their stadium.
Well, that was my next point, is that looks like people, and Florida's talking about it, according to people out here, they're talking about instead of putting these 90,000 seat stadiums, cut them back to 65 or whatever, you know. And bigger's not always better. And I'm kind of in favor of that because it make it a better experience for the consumer, number one. Of course, they'll be able to jack their prices up when they do that because they'll have fewer tickets. But, I mean, look, I go back when Florida football was a premium ticket. There's a waiting line. You had to pay the premium to get those tickets. And now they're plentiful. So, obviously, times have changed. All right, bowl game. Where are they going to go, Kassidy? Final question.
Oh, if they went out and, you know, if the chips fall where they can, then they go to a New Year's Six bowl, it's going to either be the Fiesta or the Peach.
Yeah, it looks like it.
If they don't get to a New Year's Six bowl, then it would probably be the Orange Bowl.
Georgia, Oklahoma probably like that locked up, but Georgia's not in the finals.
Yeah. If they lose, it's going to be the Gator Bowl.
Oh yeah, well, to lose is a whole different deal. But if they went out, obviously, they're going to. Now here's the thing: what if it comes down to UCF in Florida? What an insult it would be if they took UCF.
I think with the way the bids work, you could even see a UCF versus Florida.
Well, that's one of the scenarios. But my point is that it's no longer a slam dunk because Florida's fan attendance may factor in that.
Absolutely.
And you talk about all this. Yeah. Go ahead.
That's things, and I don't know if people realize this because it is still relatively new. It's only been 4 or 5 years. But the committee takes everything into account.
All the data, all the analytics, yes.
Sounds a little weird to me.
Yeah.
I saw one of the scenarios said Florida versus UCF in the Fiesta Bowl.
I saw that.
I just can't imagine that scenario actually happening because the committee takes things into account such as where will the fans travel to? What is a preferable matchup? What is a matchup that will get high TV ratings? And that last one is why I think we shouldn't be surprised if the scenario that's been floated that's possible. We shouldn't be surprised if Florida versus versus West Virginia happens. Just because I think when you say Florida versus West Virginia, people just see that money sign. People are going to tune into that game.
I agree.
Just for the drama. And so the Fiesta Bowl is possible. If it works out, I would see the Peach Bowl happening before that. But the Peach Bowl, because of its location, and is a little bit more. It's a little bit considered a better bowl for an
it's school. Atlanta, and it's it's kind of the home turf, and it's SEC territory, and whatever.
So that might end up being LSU, because the scenario I see working out in my mind is Alabama and Georgia playing the SEC championship. Alabama wins, but Georgia at least keeps it respectable. Yeah. And therefore they get the Sugar Bowl bid.
Yeah.
So Georgia to the Sugar Bowl. So then, if LSU stays ahead of Florida, I see LSU getting that Sugar Bowl bid.
Then it's a UCF for Florida.
In Florida, and then if Florida does win out, then Florida, probably would get the Fiesta Bowl. And that's the one that has been floated around. Yeah. Not only just in scenarios, but around the USA as well. Right. That's kind of what they're hearing as well. And so I think that is, I would say Fiesta or Peach. And as much as I think as the fan, it would be better to go to the Peach Bowl. I think the Fiesta Bowl.
I kind of feel. I agree. I kind of feel the same way you do about that. I really do. I think it's something to what you just said there. So we'll see. Of course, who would have thought when they were down 31 to 14, and that we'd be talking about which one of the New Year's Six bowls they'd be going to.
Exactly.
Yeah. Hey, Kassidy, it's fun. I always appreciate it. Tell them how you can get a hold of InsideGators.com and read you.
Yeah, just go to InsideGators.com. That's all it is. You can subscribe there. You can even sign up for $1 to do a sneak preview for a day to poke around to see if you like it.
Yeah.
And several different subscription options. So just pick the one that's best for you. We have stories every day, and then we're always updating our boards multiple times a day.
All right, I got a prize-winning story for you, guaranteed to win you a big prize.
Gosh.
All right? I'm telling you, this is a slam dunk. As I live and breathe in my bones as an editor. Do you know where Theodore, Alabama is?
Yes, sir. You know where I'm from?
I know you're from Alabama.
I'm from Mobile, Alabama.
Okay, well,
Let me repeat
you
that.
know where 8 Mile, Alabama is too, then.
Yes, sir. I'm from Satsuma, Alabama, which
Okay.
is in the Mobile area.
Right.
So therefore, very familiar with 8 Mile, which is home of Kadarius Toney,
Correct.
and Theodore, which is the home of Michael P. Ryan.
Yes, correct. Now, you got to figure this out.
Those are all right there together for those
Here's
who
a
don't
guaranteed prize for you.
I
Find
have a
some
feeling
way.
I know what story you're about to tell me.
Well, I want you to go home, and I want you to meet Michael P. Ryan someplace, and after whatever holiday, and you and him ride the bus back, Greyhound bus to Gainesville. I'm telling you all about, It's great
That's how we
stuff.
got noted. Yep.
About what it was like that day when he paid his own way, got a bus ticket, and came to Gainesville when he could have got a scholarship at Mississippi State, and you look at the life-changing decision and what was going on in his life. That's a great story, man. That's a great story. Anyway, so only you could write
Really
that story.
shows that kid's perseverance.
Yeah, it's a great story of perseverance. All the things we love about athletes, the stories who just wanted it bad enough to buy his ticket on a Greyhound bus. That sounds like a country song if I ever heard one.
Exactly. He's a dog.
Yeah, you got it. Kassidy, thank you very much. Kassidy Hill of InsideGators.com. She covers the Gators and a lot more. Appreciate your time. Let's do it again, okay?
Thanks, buddy. Talk to you next time.
All right, thank you. All right. I always do like bright young people, and impressive. They're cut above. And I appreciate that about them and people who work hard and would have integrity, which Kassidy does. I just love young people who are like that. I think it's fabulous. So I'm a fan of Kassidy, as you can probably tell. Okay, well, we took up a lot of time there, didn't we? Let's do this. Let's catch up on a couple of breaks here. And I want to tell you that we asked the same question about attendance to Robbie Andreu. Had a few thoughts about it, the Gainesville Sun. He'll be coming up. And hopefully tonight we'll get on our little brief. Remember a guy named Terry Norvell? T-Mac, you might remember him. He used to do radio in the Ocala-Gainesville area 22 years ago here with us. He was the Crown Prince's afternoon co-host on Sports Talk Radio. He, of course, now is in Jacksonville. He's been doing all kind of broadcasting radio there. And now he's gone to Facebook Live like we are. And he does a show. Called College Sports Today. Many of you know it on Facebook. He was our guest speaker last night at Ocala Quarterback Club. And we sat out with Terry for a couple of minutes and picked his brains. But first, we're going to here from Robbie Andreu. And first, we're going to tell you about WinStar Medical Research and this project that we're doing. And we're so thankful that WinStar has been a part of this. Each week, you might notice on this show, we have a WinStar Star of the Week. It's been high school football players lately. And they're being singled out as the tops in their class, all seniors. And then they're also put into a pool. And if they qualify as a leading candidate for the Scott Brantley Trophy in academics and in character and what have you, they then go into a finalist mode, semifinalists, and there are 8 semifinalists, and they're here on this page. I won't read the names again. You can see them. We had one last night. We had enjoyed hearing at the Ocala Quarterback Club. Brian Maurer from Westport, who's a Tennessee commit. What a fine young man Brian Maurer is. He'll represent his school and his state very well. And I know a lot of people say, yeah, it's Tennessee. Well, I root for my hometown boys, okay? I'm sorry. I want them to do well, just not too well against the Gators, but still, Brian Meyer was there. Anyway, this is the project, Scott Bailey Trophy. We had a meeting tonight on it. It's going to be so cool. We got 8 finalists, and then there's going to be cut down to 4. There'll be a final 4 announced next week, and then we're moving it down to the winner and a special presentation with a big-name person coming to town in the spring. So that's what's happening. RenStar, thank you so much for supporting that program. RenStar, of course, is community-minded. It's a superior medical research facility with a proven reputation. High-quality, patient-centered research facility, and they bring cutting-edge technology and clinical research to trials in Ocala in the areas for things like Alzheimer's, psoriasis, dementia, osteoarthritis, migraine, and fibromyalgia, along with many other conditions in our community that affect people. So RenStar has participated in these clinical trials since 1998, and the data goes off to the biomedical companies and pharmaceutical companies throughout the medical industry to find cures for these diseases. So RenStar Medical Research, you can get online and find out more about them by going to RenStar.net, and you can call them in Ocala at 352-629-5800 to find out if you'd like to be involved in the trials, and more information there. Meanwhile, I just want to remind you, RenStar Medical Research, seeking tomorrow's answers to the health questions of today. Grinders for men? Well, what can I say? There are very few places better than this right here that I know of anywhere. And they have a long-standing tradition of quality clothes and service. And it's in Ocala. If you've ever been to Ocala for holidays, most of the time around Christmas time or Hanukkah, whatever it may be, you're going to see a Grinders wrapper on a present or two for men. They've been dressing generations of men since 1962. Continue to do so. They're located at 405 East Silver Spring Boulevard in downtown Ocala. David DeSantis is the owner. He's there and will fix you right up with you. I'm going to go buy a coat from Dave. I'm going to go buy a windbreaker and a sport coat in the next couple of weeks. Got a big event coming up. And I know David will give me value, give me service, and he'll give me something that will look good and fit right. He'll fit you for it. So if you have any needs for holidays, don't wait around because there's a lot of stuff in the store, but don't wait till it's all picked over. Go down and check it out. Call them at 352-629-3195. It's Grinders for Men, Ocala tradition since 1962. And also our friends over at Center State Bank. My friend Tom Ingram last night went with me to the Ocala Quarterback Club. Tom was back from sabbatical, back in his office at Center State. Glad to see him there. His office is right there on the second floor up there on the left-hand side in that beautiful building, which he helped to get built. And Center State Bank is known for its quality service, a beautiful place to bank to go to, and they share that with the community. You can go up there and actually, we've had meetings there. We've had Megan Mullen spoke there, been art shows up there, fundraisers on the second floor, weddings, all the while they bank. And downstairs, you can go down there and talk about their banking services, their attempt to establish relationship banking with you, and all the things that make banking a pleasant experience. Center State Bank, you can find them in 82 locations in 30 Florida counties, and you can call them here in Ocala, this particular bank, at 352-368-6800. That's Center State Bank, centered on community and customer service. Okay, Robbie Andreu. We had a chance to catch up with Robbie. And of course, Robbie is kind of the senior he's one of the longest tenured reporters on the beat. And I want to get Robbie's thoughts about a couple of things, including the situation with the students. Here's what Robbie had to say. All right, now to the RenStar hotline, and let's talk to a guy who's winding down a little bit right now in week number 12, game number 11. Robbie Andreu of the Gainesville Sun, my friend Robbie. It's almost over. We waited for it all summer, and yet we only got a couple of weeks to go in the regular season.
Yeah, it's flown by, buddy. And the thing that amazes me, Florida fans talk about football, summer, can't wait for it to get there, and then they don't show up for games when you only have so many opportunities. So I'm sure it'll be a fairly small crowd on Saturday. I just don't get that. I'm with Mullen on this one.
You know, it seems to have ticked off a few people, and it seems to have ticked off a a lot of people in the media, and the more people I talk to. I talked to Chris Doring earlier this week, and he brought up the point that, if this team doesn't travel well, doesn't show up, if it comes down to a pick-six situation, and it can be the difference in a New Year's Day game and not a New Year's Day game, and that right now, that's where it sits, depending on what happens. This could come back to bite the Gators in the butt.
Well, yeah, if you're a team that doesn't travel, that's a kind of a red light there for a bowl game. They want people in the stands. They want teams that are going to travel. So, Florida traditionally would travel really well, but in recent years they just haven't done it, buddy. And I don't get it, especially the interest in the program and people talking about football all year round. And then you only get 6 or 7 games here, and then you don't show up for a few. It doesn't make sense.
Well, let's talk about that, because we've been there when it was brimming over and there was a waiting list, and and you getting to a Gator ticket was like gold, and now it's like we see it, us veteran scribes or hacks as you call them, in a, not a pejorative way, but in a fun-loving way. The bottom line is that we see these people stroll in there. Some of them don't get there till the second quarter. It's almost like like a Lakers game, fashionably late, and let them bail, and then they don't even fill out the stands. And there's a lot of theories out there about what's going on with college football in general and Florida football in specifically. Let's hear yours.
Well, I think one thing, buddy, is people have gotten lazy. They HDTV and sit home and drink all the beer you want. The bathroom's right next to you, and I think that has a little bit to do with it. And back in the day, a Florida football game was kind of an event that you planned for all week. You looked forward to it. You got there early, you stayed through the game, and tailgated afterwards too. But it seems like people now are in a hurry. They want it the easy way, the lazy way to watch games, and that's stay at home, a lot of them. And another thing that's kind of really weird when you go to a game, when we head into press parking every Saturday, there's like a mass of students walking in the opposite direction away from the stadium, like they're heading to parties, and then they don't show up on time or don't show up at all. And, when I was a student here back in the 70s, you would never miss a game if you were a student. It was always packed.
And when I was there, you wore a coat and tie. So
yeah, I know. I remember that.
And sat in the sun. So there is something going on there for sure. And by the way, for the people watching the screen thinking, what is on the screen, just for a moment, I have a photograph of Media Day. I looked for a photograph of Robbie for 10 minutes. He's the least photographed guy in the Florida media. I think he's traveling under an assumed name. I don't know, because there's no pictures.
I'm the opposite of Hubert Mizell. Remember, he would always get in the picture.
Yeah. Well, I found one of you, Robbie, finally on Facebook, and it's you and I and the younger Matt Baker from the St. Pete, now it's the Tampa Bay Times, standing in front of Kyle Trask at Media Days. And here we are talking to the guy that could have become the quarterback except. And that's the only photograph that I could find of us and of you, and so it just happens I'm in it. So I looked everywhere so I have to get an 8x10 suitable for framing and get it put in my office of Robbie Andreu, the legendary sports writer for the Gainesville Sun. Just had to put that in there. People are thinking, what is that picture up there? So now that I've annoyed people, I'll take the picture now. Let's get back to this idea. There's talking with sports writers and friends and people smarter than me, there's a lot going on there aside from just being lazy. And that certainly is that there's no football patriotism, let's say it that way, okay? There's no reason to go support your team. They don't really care about it that much, let's be honest. So the question becomes now the changing dynamic of the student body. And you can say nerd, you can say whatever you want to say. The fact remains is that it's not, as we just said, it's not as important to them to support a football team or sports team as it was to past generations. And let's be honest, there's a lot smarter kids in that student body than they were when you and I were in school, that's for sure. I think it's happening all over sports, and I think the popularity has waned among the millennials.
Maybe, but the thing is, though, you look at the students nowadays, they're like we were too. They still party. We got to party and go to the game. They don't seem to realize you can do both, it seems like.
Yeah, that's right. There's a novel concept.
You can do both.
You can do both, yeah. Well, anyway, it seems though it's definitely changing, and it's not necessarily for the better of those of us who enjoy football. So let's talk about this team. Let's talk about the news of the week. Obviously, last week's game. I want to see who you agree with. I was talking to a person who knows Florida football really well, and I consider you to be one of those people, and hopefully I know a little bit. And we were talking about how close this team was to going down a deep hole last week. Given the situation they were in at that moment, having gotten beat by Georgia, and after that getting hammered by a mediocre, at best, mediocre Missouri team, stepping up and having the quarterback booed, quarterback not being able to hit his targets, and they're behind 14-0 and then 31-14, and I'm thinking this whole thing could go down the tubes right here with Mullen, and it didn't happen that way. We'll discuss that in a minute, but how perilously close was this whole thing to going over the cliff?
It was close, buddy. I don't think the program in general and where he's going to take it, Mullen I'm talking about, but just this season in general was heading. It was starting to look like last year where they couldn't compete against teams they were playing late in the year. And the difference now is I think they had leadership from the coaching staff, leadership from within the team. They hung in there and found a way to pull that game out. It was really big, and now you're looking at a program that has momentum again, talking about maybe winning 10 games and getting to a New Year's Day 6 bowl game. So, a lot to play for now, and had they lost that game, there wouldn't be much at all to play for. Then you wonder what happens then.
Yeah, and I think you're exactly right. We're talking about a program that was a coach that could really be in a tough spot because, people were starting to chirp, how they chirp, and not that the program would be damaged. I don't agree with the tweet that Luke Del Rio put out about if he stuck with Felipe that the program is in danger of losing the fans. But it was a precarious situation. I felt it in my gut. I felt like if this game doesn't turn around, and quite frankly, I didn't think it was going to turn around, and then there's trouble ahead here. And now to swing the other way based on a quarterback, a disenfranchised quarterback who was booed, coming back to score the winning touchdown and shushing the fans, winning the game, the 7th game of the year, and now what should be a 9-win and maybe a 10-win season. You talk about a swing of fortunes, Robbie, that's a big one.
Oh, absolutely, buddy. And, they did such good work early in the year, LSU and Mississippi State, and they had all kinds of momentum going back in the top 10, playing in a huge game in Jacksonville, and then it looked like it was going to fall apart on them here. And, like last year, when you lose that momentum, it's hard to get it back. And yet somehow last Saturday, when it looked like they had lost it completely, they did get it back and found a way to win that game. So it changes the mindset of a lot of people to be able to come back like that and win the game instead of falling apart and losing again.
Robbie, where do you come down on the idea that former players are criticizing programs and coaches? And I know, look, they're all media, they're trying to get in the media business, and I get that. And, I'm not trying to say they shouldn't have their opportunities. But Luke Del Rio's situation, I know Rex Grossman is famous for his tweets. I got one the other day. That, and then you've got people firing shots, and there isn't enough separation sometimes between a player who has teammates he's talking about and the program. How do you feel about that?
Well, to me, buddy, it's the whole dynamic of social media now. People that never had a voice of any kind, anybody now has a voice. They put it out there, and you're getting a lot of that. So people have their opinions. They want to spread them out, and it's easy to be critical when things aren't going well. And those same people jump back on board when they were beating LSU and teams like that. So I think just everybody's got a voice now, and everybody wants everybody else to hear it.
Robbie Andreu, the Gainesville Sun. Robbie, one more. How do you see the quarterback thing playing out? Now we know Emory Jones is going to get some playing time in at least 2 games. Which ones? How much would he get in this week? Will it be all of Felipe Frank's game? Will we see Andrew Toney at quarterback? All kinds of suppositions and ideas and thoughts about how he'll play the quarterbacks. How do you see it happen?
Yeah, buddy, my thought is that if he, doesn't play him in this game, wants to save him for the final 2 games, then you're only saving him maybe to run a package of plays in those last 2 games like Georgia. Now, if you want him to really go out and play and get a feel for the offense and show what he's capable of doing, you play him in this game for maybe a half or more if things go well early. I think this is a game where we're going to see a lot of Emory Jones, and you're going to see a lot of things in the offense that Mullen is going to want to do moving forward. So I think the burn up in 2 games where he wouldn't get any more than a package of plays would be kind of a waste, in that this is a chance for the kid to go out and play.
Robbie Andreu, noted veteran scribe. You never see him anywhere online. You don't see his picture. It's like Howard Hughes. Used to be a reward for anybody getting a picture of Howard Hughes. I can't find one. I have to put one up of myself with Robbie in it to get it on. But we got him on, got his voice, and we're always glad to have him. Robbie, appreciate it. We'll see you this weekend.
Yeah, buddy. I wish I had Howard's money.
Don't we all? But you're in a better place than he is right now. So there you go.
Yeah, no doubt.
All right, Robbie Andreu. Thank you, buddy.
Thanks, buddy.
All right, the congenial Robbie Andreu, the Gainesville Sun, catching up on a few items there. Well, it's Idaho this weekend, and maybe a chance we can breathe easier just a little bit, and catch up on a few things around the house, catch the ball game, and there are a couple of interesting games out there. I like that Iowa State Texas game looks interesting. Of course, Notre Dame, Syracuse is going to be, that's from Yankee Stadium. So I'll flip around. There's not much in the SEC to watch this week. But, hey, college football Saturday is college football Saturday, no matter how bad it gets. I was on the show a couple days ago, and I meant to play the interview. I never got around to it, with Chris Childers from SEC Today. And we were talking about how bad the games were. And I said to Chris, hey, you go to spring games, don't you? Yeah. And you want to see more football. If you want to see football, you go to see football. Some people, obviously. Now, look, I get it. Everybody wants to go to the LSU games and the Tennessee game and Florida State game, whatever. And the ones that, even Missouri, I mean, look, it's just not that much. It isn't that much exciting an opponent, although certainly they taught Florida a lesson or two. So I don't see where this is all going. Winning is going to be a big part of it, but wouldn't it be something if this fan base did continue to deteriorate, that it wasn't all the fault of Mac? Think about it for a second. Mac is kind of like the whipping boy. He gets blamed for everything, and a certain amount of it should go to his feet, without question. So there are a lot of things going on here. There's this galaxy, including attitudes, mores, as they say, just the kind of time they want to spend with their boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever it may be. And they're not going to be pouring out to the stadium every weekend. Has this day ended? I don't know. These things swing back and forth, but it could. I know one thing. I have been very privileged and pleased to have been able to watch college football at its pinnacle and to be in Gainesville for some of the most glorious days. 1990 on through Spurrier, and then, of course, Urban Meyer after that, 2005 through 2010. You couldn't have to experience those things, and that's the problem. We're all kind of spoiled with that. But to have been there and experience part of that, growing up a Gator fan as I did as a boy, listen, I grew up at a time when I listened to the radio with Otis Box. That was my form of entertainment. We couldn't afford tickets even then. They were probably $8 a piece or something. But that was our game. And college football, baseball to a lesser degree, but college football was our game. There wasn't pro football in Florida back in those days. I know it's ancient history, but so if you want to watch Washington Redskin games, that's what we had on TV. But college football was it, and the Gators were always my team. So it's been a privilege for me all these years to be able to follow them and watch them. And even whenever I was traveling, living in Colorado or Florida, able to keep up, come back here to games, etc., and do that. So here we are, 2018. Dan Mullen, 7 wins, should get to 9, a chance to play in the New Year's Bowl game and get to 10. It's going to be a good year if that happens. It'll be a very good year. And thanks to our guest tonight. We appreciate Kassidy Hill, a chance to catch up with her. Robbie Andreu. We'll get those other interviews on here one of these nights. Tomorrow morning, Football Friday, 11 a.m. Get up, get your coffee, get started. We'll have Joe Williams. We'll have France Beard. The Iron Duke will be joining us tomorrow. So we'll talk about the weekend games and get our picks in, and you give us yours. So with that, we will say thank you for watching tonight, and we will talk to you then. Have a good night, everybody.